Okay, alrighty, let's do this. Hi. Hey people, I am Mark Rodriguez, and I am also known as White Bengal, and I'm known as a lot of things. But one thing I've always wanted to do is kind of try my hand at sort of reviewing music. Not sure exactly how I want to do it, but I thought maybe a video would be fun, so I'm going to try doing a video. I've made a list of my top 10 albums of this year, and I wanted to share it with everybody because I think that it's kind of interesting to share your opinions on music, and I do have some opinions here, and I'd like people to maybe listen to some of these things. I'd like people maybe just to, consider and hear what I have to say about these records and some honorable mentions. And let's just get into it. Let's just do it. Let's just do it. So, I have some honorable mentions that I want to talk about. One of these is Humanz by Gorillaz. Gorillaz is an English everything project led by Damon Albarn. You might know him from Blur and even some solo material, but a lot of people know him from this too. He is a multi-instrumentalist and composer who works with visual artist Jamie Hewlett on creating a sort of virtual band. If you might know about Gorillaz. I mean, everybody's heard Feel Good Inc. So they released an album this year called Humanz. I like it. It's not their best, but it still has some really fun new Gorillaz tunes, and I feel like it's a little bit of an oversaturation of material. Like, the deluxe version comes with a bunch of tracks, and then a bunch of other tracks, and they kind of just progressively get less good. I like the last song, but it just kind of dies off after a while. But there's some really great songs on there. Andromeda and Strobe Light. Saturn's Bar is one of my favorite songs of the year. One of my initial favorite songs of the year, like number one, but I might do a list of songs of the year. I don't know. So yeah, it's not their best, but I love the band. Obviously, this is the inside of Demon Days. I love the band, obviously, and I just, I had to shout them out. So also, want to talk about the Black Dahlia murder. One of the most popular, I think, modern death metal bands, and I believe one of the best selling as well. They've put out this album this year called Nightbringers, and it's just 10 tracks of pummeling death metal fury. It's so just intense and fast. It's exciting and melodic metal, and it's great because it comes from that very popular group, and they have a huge fan base. And it's kind of clear why, because they just have this very specific sound, and they do it right almost every time. This is something that I really liked, though. I've got to say, I've got to really hand it to them. They went pretty hard on this. I mean, Catacomb Hecatome. It's about being eaten by spiders or something. Ski Mask, the Slump God, is a SoundCloud rapper of sorts. Yeah, he's a SoundCloud rapper. But with this mixtape release called You Will Regret, he's really set himself apart from the pack. He not only has incredible flows, like flows that are just miles better than anyone else's. He has speed and he has agility. Like some other modern trap musicians, the social consciousness and emotion of some other hip-hop is not quite there always, but he has some really funny lyrics, he has some really clever lyrics, and they're delivered with such speed and agility that it makes him very much a figure that stands out from the pack in people who might not always put such a focus on technicality and might put more of a focus on having just a really cool beat behind them. Veil of Maya, False Idol, from Sumerian Records. They are a great band, and I've listened to a bunch of their old stuff. This is really particularly good. They have just these hard gent grooves that come in some places, but it's different because now they are experimenting with some really weird sounds. Guitarist Marco Kubo has some really great guitar work on this, almost, like, not Tom Morello sounding, but almost feels like things that he would think of. Their second record with their newest vocalist, Lucas Magyar, I always thought that he could sing, growl, and scream well, like one of the best at all three, but he really proves it here, and he writes some incredible hooks, so gotta give it to Veil of Maya. Volumes, Different Animals. Volumes is a great band, and I've seen them a bunch of times now, but they're just, they have this quality that kind of sets them apart from some other gent bands in that they have a lot of fun with it. Like, it's very bouncy, very groovy stuff a lot of the times, And their introduction of Mike Terry, formerly of Bury Your Dead, first album with him, he brings some great hooks to the table, and he brings also just some great harsh vocals to the table. And it surprised me. It gave me a really good collection of songs that I really latched onto for a little while back when it first came out. Last but not least, for the honorable mentions, I want to shout out 68. I discovered this band on Warped Tour in 2015 as I was waiting to watch Beartooth. They are fantastic. Fantastic band. Two-piece bluesy hardcore band led by Josh Scoggin. You might know him formerly of The Chariot and of Norma Jean initially, actually. And he brings very thick, heavy, bluesy sounds to what otherwise would kind of be a hardcore punk project. And with, that's initially what he did with their first record. But now with this new record, Two Parts Viper, he is bringing in even more diverse sounds and even more high-quality songwriting. It's a little less noisy and abrasive than the first album, and I love the first album for being so noisy and abrasive. He's just writing some of his best material ever, some of his best riffs, some of the best lyrics. Not so much avant-garde, but more very, very creative writing, just very compelling sets of words that he puts together. So, gotta give it to 68. Two great musicians, one great band. Check them out if you haven't. Two Parts Viper is an excellent record that I feel like definitely has something for everyone. Getting into the actual list now with number 10, we got Dan Auerbach, Waiting on a Song. Dan Auerbach, you might know him of the rock band The Black Keys, lead singer and guitarist of that rock band, another two-piece. Released an album this year, Waiting on a Song. It's a 70s AM radio pop throwback with just 10 tracks of exactly that. It has sort of that chimey, clean sort of sound that you would expect to hear from a 70s AM radio pop hit. And I personally am a huge fan of that. From my parents and my whole family, I've learned to love that sound. A lot of those, Motown and just like grandiose symphonic pop influences that he's got going on here, along with some, folk rock elements, kind of all mixed together to create a perfect blend of all of those different classic 70s pop sounds. Some particularly good songs: King of a One-Horse Town, Undertow, Shine on Me. The title track, Waiting on a Song, is fantastic as well. It's a great collection of songs to just kind of sit back and relax to. So if you ever feel compelled to kind of go a little bit back in time, especially if you were around in that time, please give it a listen. It's just really, really well written, really well put together, fantastic. In the great production. It sounds straight from that time period. He's a wonderful composer, and he just really puts the stuff together really well. Next record I want to talk about, August Burns Red, Phantom Anthem. Huge surprise here. I love August Burns Red very much. I have one wall of my room that is almost entirely dedicated to August Burns Red stuff. I think they're a fantastic band, one of my favorite metalcore bands, one of my favorite bands to see live, and I have seen them live many times. When Invisible Enemy, which is a Grammy-nominated song for, it's okay. When it was first released, I did not like it very much. I was like, I'm not going to like this album. It didn't grip me at all, and it's still personally one of my least favorites from the album. Next single comes out, The Frost. Still not digging it so much. I'm not like, wow, this is the best material they've ever put out. A lot of people were. I didn't hear it. Release date gets closer. I'm still not excited. The album comes out. I listen to the whole thing. I was like, what did I ever doubt this for? It has a lot of really good tracks on it. Not going to go so far as to say it's their best, but it's definitely a very good combination of a lot of their past sound. It's got some of the most technical, inventive, and fun parts that just show up all over this release. And they still have the power to move the listener with their lyrics and music. Some of these songs that call back to earlier, August Burns Red records would include Quake, which to me kind of sounds like a song that you could hear on Messengers. That's my favorite song from the record. But, it's kind of a callback to their Messengers era. It just has that sound. It has that quality in the main riff, where it's kind of that very catchy, sticks in your head kind of riff. But then cuts like Hero of the Half-Truth. When it comes to songs like that, then you hear a little bit, more of just Found in Faraway Places. Their record that came out just before this. That song really kind of expands more into a post-hardcore realm, sort of what, Found in Faraway Places was doing. A little bit maybe more chord stuff, but still got the technical thing going on, and just a lot of melody. And then songs like King of Sorrow and Coordinates really just show where the band can go. I mean, King of Sorrow is like a all-around, just very August Burns Red song. Like, it incorporates elements from almost every album you can hear in that song. Coordinates has just these soft guitar parts and these really interesting leads, and a little bit of singing there, and it's well done. It's probably their most tastefully and well done clean vocal parts on any record they've really done so far. So yeah, I like it a lot. I was pleasantly surprised, and I love it, and I still love ABR, so I'm happy. Next, number 8, Counterparts. You're Not You Anymore. Yes, I am. What a fantastic record, and what a nice surprise. Let me explain a little bit how I was feeling about this record. I like Counterparts. I think the difference between Hell and Home is a really good record, but their previous effort, Tragedy Will Find Us, it's okay, but nothing really grabbed me much, and nothing kind of stood out to me like some of the stuff on Difference Between Hell and Home did. Like, it wasn't like sticking in the front of my mind like, wow, I can't wait to hear this, but I was like, yeah, I'll hear it. So release day comes, I listen to it, and I just am immediately blown away, because Counterparts has done it. I think they've made their best of the records I've heard of them. I think this is their best so far. It's a massive step forward for the band on 3 fronts: songwriting, experimentation, and consistency without sacrificing diversity. Their songwriting has gotten better. The songs are very just memorable. Like, there's a lot of memorable parts in each of these songs. They have a little bit more singing now, but not so much that it makes them sound like a different band or it distracts. They've sometimes had a little bit of singing in their records, but this one has a little bit more, but not too much. And a lot of times it can be, group singing, and Brendan is just a very versatile singer, and he does really well with it. Experimentation. They kind of mess around with a lot of different things here. There's a little more, some groovy stuff. The song Haunt Me, there's a little bit more groovy stuff, a little more bass work, kind of. It's really cool. And, they mess around with a lot of different sounds. There's some, just beautifully melodic stuff on here like they've always done. And then there's some really heavy songs. Thieves is a crushing song. It's definitely the heaviest I've heard from them. And Brendan just really goes in. He gets very aggressive. The guitars are blaring and pummeling, and the drums are going really hard. And consistency without sacrificing diversity. They have this consistent sound throughout the record, but each song has more identity than ever before on a Counterparts record. A lot of Counterparts records, you can kind of hear it's a lot of the same all the way through. But with this, it's like, it'll come on and I'll be like, oh, that's Haunt Me, or that's Thieves, or that's No Servant of Mine, One thing that I have to mention is the classic Counterparts spoken word pieces. Not so much of it here. A little bit of speaking. I don't necessarily miss it. It was something I liked, but not having it there, it's there, but not having it there so much doesn't really take away from the record at all for me. And this was just, one of the best releases of the year. Kendrick Lamar, number 7. Kendrick Lamar, darn, damn, and damn. So, story time. I remember hearing this for the first time. I remember seeing it be announced, and I was like, oh yeah. I remember listening to Pimp a Butterfly. At that time, I wasn't too impressed by it. I am a little bit more now. And I still think To Pimp a Butterfly is somewhat better than Damn. But I digress. So, here I am. It's the release day for Damn. I'm sitting in a public place with my jaw on the floor because I'm hearing Kendrick go all in on DNA, that second track right after the intro, Blood, which is a surprise in itself. When Kendrick goes in on that last verse of DNA, I was in shock. He is one of the most thought-provoking rappers around right now. I know that's a general thought that a lot of people have, but it's really just because it's true. Some of the things he says and some of the ways that he puts things put a different perspective on how you're thinking about it. And a lot of it is, that traditional, clever hip-hop lyricism, but he just always gets it right. This has some of the best production from any of his records. Like, Tip of a Butterfly has all the jazz stuff and has all the funk stuff. But the production on this is a little bit more based in modern hip-hop, a little bit more based in some trap elements. And it's got this quality to it that just, it's there's so many different sounds. Like, no two songs really sound the same. For example, there is Feel, which is like a guitar ballad, but with, kind of just a washy sort of vibe. And then there's tracks like Humble, which are just have straight up distorted trap production. And it's very interesting to hear this diverse palette of production while still making it consistent, still keeping the audience on their toes, still keeping the audience engaged with the record itself and the content of what he's saying, speaking on things that he's always spoken on, racial injustice and social justice. But then he goes and he incorporates human emotion into it. He incorporates the human psyche into it, and how people think and why people feel the way they do about things, and how people feel about everything from love to God to lust to fear to and these are all track names. It's just very intense, but it doesn't feel like you're being pummeled with anything too harsh or too abrasive. It's still entertaining, and it's still so much fun to listen to, even to this day. A track from this came out in April. To this day, a track from Damn comes on, I'm like, heck, that's a thing right there. Numero 6, Silverstein, Dead Reflection, is the newest album from Canadian post-hardcore outfit Silverstein, a band that I enjoy very much, and who I think, they're just excellent songwriters, and they're excellent musicians, and they incorporate a lot of different elements of a lot of different things into their sound while still making it sound like, hey, this is a Silverstein song. And what they kind of did here was they just made a really brilliant collection of songs. They're more personal than ever. They're heavier than ever before, and somehow catchier and poppier, and even at times lighter and more beautiful than ever before. Just, from all of the past stuff that I've heard. And Shane Told, lead vocalist, he puts his stories in such a way that they're not hackneyed, but they touch on kind of those tinges of old emo music in that very dramatic, emotional response to things that one might have, without kind of sacrificing the integrity of what he's saying. Like, he does it right. Like I said before, they're going heavier than ever before, too. Tuning lower than ever before. Not that that necessarily makes your music heavier, but I figured I'd mention it. They've got some really intense grooves on this, like Retrograde and Ghost. They got Last Looks has some really heavy parts. Oh, yeah, Last Looks. Yeah. But it also has some of their catchiest stuff. Like I said, it's got a pop-punk song on it. The Afterglow is a pop-punk song, and it's a good one at that. It's a very catchy song. A lot of the records are very thematic, but this one's very dramatic, and it's more personally based. Like, for the last two records, he tried to do, a grand sort of concept with a lot of stories, but now he's going back to kind of talking about himself and how he feels about certain things, and how he's felt about past relationships that he's been in, and you can really hear him hurting on this one. You can, hear it. Every song has its own identity, and they really nail that here. It's got a perfect mix of aggressive and some radio-friendly stuff, like Demons has, a very radio-friendly hook. Kind of reminds me a little bit of One Republic in a way. I just think that it's a brilliant record. I think it's one of the best things I've just heard from them. Yeah, they're just excellent. Excellent songwriters. Excellent boys. Very good Canada boys. The best Canada boys. A lot of good Canada boys out there. Number 5, Halfway. Code Orange. Forever. Okay. All right. Where is it? Look at that. Look at this. Beautiful. I can't even begin. It's so visceral, aggressive, a little bit yucky, and it just has so much power, and it goes for the throat. As you can see, all of the members of Code Orange on this record give significantly better performances than they did on their last record, I Am King. And until I went back after this and listened to I Am King, I didn't even realize that. But now that I've heard that, they've improved, just 3 years later, so significantly. They're continuing in this very, very abrasive style of hardcore that is so pummeling and punishing, but it doesn't end there. No. My friend, they are expanding onto grunge. They are doing grunge, and they're doing it right. They're doing grunge in their own very abrasive, Kurt Ballou-produced way. Kurt Ballou, by the way, destroyed this record with his destructive, punishing production. Very good job, Kurt. I mean, you never don't do a good job. Yeah, and I mean, like, tracks like Bleeding in the Blur, that gets radio airplay, but also songs like the title track are getting airplay from this. And the title track was also nominated for a Grammy. Meanwhile, it has one of the yuckiest breakdowns ever. Right in the middle of it, Shade just starts growling over these distorted chords, and I'm like, I don't believe that this got nominated for a Grammy. This is some of the yuckiest stuff I've ever heard. I love it. It's so good. They've even got more of like an industrial influence in here on tracks like The Mud and Hurt Goes On, both of which are very kind of a little bit off-putting, but in a brilliant way, where you're like, oh, okay, I see what you're doing. I see you, Jamie Morgan. I see you. Young band on the rise. They know what they're doing, and they know that they know what they're doing. They know that they're good. And honestly, I'm, like, happy about it. Like, I'm glad that they're not, like, saying, like, oh, no, yeah, we're not the best band. And they're like, yeah, we're pretty darn good. And I'm like, yeah, you are. Good. Talk about it. Keep an eye. Keep an eye on these guys. They're obviously huge on the rise. Like, you know, they're nominated for a Grammy. Their faces are up in Times Square. Keep even a further eye on them. I think they're going to be one of the biggest rock bands in the world someday. I really do. Because a lot of people know them, but not everybody knows their name. Someday, everybody's going to know this name. Code Orange. Remember that. Number 4. The Faceless. In Becoming a Ghost. More like In Becoming the GOAT. The greatest of all time. This Los Angeles-based progressive metal outfit has released what I think, controversial opinion, is their best album. It's more up my alley. It's more my speed. Some of their catchiest and most gripping emotional material to date. They took kind of a risk by straying away from stuff like I was talking about with Planetary and Autotheism, those socially and mentally challenging themes. They took a risk by going in a more emotional direction, and it paid off. Keane has never written such emotional lyrics, and working with new vocalist Ken Sorceron on, you know, Growls and Screams, very full, kind of commanding, almost spooky voice. And at the same time, Keane has never, ever given better vocal performances. Never. He is, in my opinion, one of the best singers we have in modern metal. But simply based on the fact that he just has a great, unique, and powerful voice. I also want to give kudos to him for not only employing his, you know, very technical lead guitar work and very just strong guitar work, but also picking up the bass on this one. And he did really good with that. While there is a little bit of a weak low-end mix, and the bass tone is kind of, you know, rubber bandy, I like that, and it's very much a fretless bass kind of boingy sound. And I kind of like the coldness of the mix, because it's an album pretty much about dying. I mean, it's, you know, it's just a visceral story about suffering and pain. And I want to just, you know, I want to thank Keane for being so open about the struggles that this album talks about. And it's very emotional, and it kind of it affects you just listening to it and thinking about what he's saying. Altogether, it's very technical and fun. Maybe not quite as technical, but like I said, I like that. I like that, you know, on things like the Depeche Mode cover, Shake the Disease, which is brilliant, by the way. I like the fact that on that song, it's not all just, you know, I mean, sometimes it just sounds like a mad circus. Sometimes it's more production based than guitar based, and sometimes it's just very out there and wonky. And then on songs like I Am, there's a lot of, you know, not super technical riffage. It's very fast, but it's kind of all based in a similar thing. It's a very, let's take this one idea, kind of run with it, see where it goes from there. And yeah, they've just never written more inspiring stuff, I feel like. This is their first album in 5 years, and they're coming back and they're doing their thing, and it's different, it's new, but I just gotta love it, because I do. Number 3, Paramore, After Laughter. Paramore, you know who they are. They have put out a brilliant collection of pop rock songs this year. It's different. It's different for them. They were obviously moving in a little bit of a more pop direction with songs like Ain't It Fun and Still Into You. You know, a lot different than stuff on their previous albums, Brick by Boring Brick and Misery Business. Very different sound. Now it's a very different sound, but it pays off. I think that what they're doing now is absolutely fantastic. They have these sad lyrics. Very sad and very much more personal, and you can kind of hear that Ailey's not going through the best time with this one. And of course there's exceptions to that, like the kind of avant-garde track No Friend with the vocalist from Me Without You singing on it. Tracks like 26, the acoustic ballad, you know, it still has that vulnerable sound, and it still has that same open kind of sound that this album has, where it's like, okay, here, take me for what I am. But you know, they're a little more subdued, and they don't have quite that retro pop kind of sound. I like to say that this album is like a toy box, which is kind of further supported by the very fun, colorful geometric shapes that sort of just look like building blocks on the front cover. It's full of surprises. You open it, you don't know quite what you're gonna get, but you're gonna have fun with whatever it is. And then there's those kind of twinkly, xylophone-y keyboards on like the beginning of Hard Times. And then you have like those, you know, chimey things at the beginning of Pool, one of my favorite songs of the year. And it has that kind of almost innocent quality, which is backed by Williams' vocal performance, which sometimes has these little squeaks and these little, you know, imperfections. But while it does sound mature, it sounds like something that a child could enjoy. But the themes make it so dark at the same time. And it's called After Laughter for a reason, because it's, you know, it's not a happy album. It's not a happy album. Happy sounding, not happy. And it works. All 3 members kill it. Like I said, Williams' vocal performances better than ever. Taylor on guitar, so good. Got those guitars. Zach Farrow back in the band now, doing some of his best drumming. Also was never just a huge Paramore fan. I like Paramore, but I was never like, oh wow, they're the best. But I think with this, made me a fan. They really did. Again, it wasn't something I was necessarily looking forward to hearing, where I was like, oh, I can't wait to hear this. But I wasn't opposed to hearing it either. So, and I'm glad that I did listen to it, because it's lovely. Number 2, The Contortionist, Clairvoyant. Wow! Again, with Contortionist, I wasn't the hugest fan. I kind of liked them. And a lot of my friends listened to them, and I was like, okay, yeah, they're cool. I gave Exoplanet a listen. It's a really heavy, abrasive record, but with a lot of really cool prog ideas. So Clairvoyant comes out, and I'm getting really excited for it, because I heard, you know, Reimagined, and I was like, oh, okay, this song's pretty cool. I heard Return to Earth, which I thought was even cooler, and I just was ready. I was really ready for it. Then it came out, and I was absolutely blown away. Starts with monochrome passive, just this piece with droning guitars and crazy soundscapes, and the guitars and soundscapes on this record, by the way, unbelievable. Keyboardist Eric Gunther is out of control with those keys, doing all of this weird, subtle things, and some things that really stick in your mind. Like, it's not all subdued. Some of it's very upfront, and the guitars just work together so well. Both guitarists in this band just really meld perfectly. Also, lead vocalist Michael Lessard has proven himself as one of the most talented vocalists in modern rock. He uses a very soft tone of voice, very subdued tone of voice a lot of the time, but also gets really up into some high ranges. This is his second album with them, and he's, just showing a lot of versatility already with them. He just writes these beautiful melodies, and if you just listen to it, they're very intricate sometimes, especially on tracks like the title track, which I'll talk about in a minute. And sometimes they're very simple, but he's another part of it. They sound so uniform as a group, and they sound so evenly distributed. Like, there's parts where you want to listen to everyone just, like, constantly. He never necessarily steals the show, but he does a perfect job by kind of creating some of these melodies that just captivate you, and you're like, wow, but you're still listening to everything. The chorus of Godspeed, it gets me. Some of the melodies from Clairvoyant get me. Some of the stuff from Return to Earth. There's something on every song that just gets me, and I'm like, wow. All right, Michael. Wow. The title track is a testament to the state of modern rock. I know that's a really big claim, but let me explain what I mean. It's my song of the year, by the way. It challenges itself in this way where it starts with these ambient noises and then comes into a very heavy riff, the most kind of abrasive song on the whole record. And it just has this power, and every single moment of it moves you, and it's constantly in motion. It's never really stagnant. It's just constantly kind of moving. There's this one part in the middle, the acoustic kind of bridge thing, where it's the only part where it even kind of slows down, but even then you're just captivated and you're in wonder of what you're listening to. You're just like, wow, where did all this come from? You just feel encapsulated by the sound, and you're sort of just possessed by it, and it's a perfect idea of what, modern rock is doing, like modern prog rock, especially if more people kind of embraced that. It's just so inspiring. Like I said, there's a powerful range of prog to pop influences on here. Reimagined is a very poppy kind of song. So's Return to Earth in ways. It has these hooks that he comes back to, and so's Absolve in a lot of ways. A lot of so basically the three singles are kind of the most catchy. Godspeed is another one that just kind of it has these another one of my favorite songs of the year, by the way. It has these catchy hooks, it has these catchy verses, it has these just catchy parts that kind of, they wow you. And then there's songs like the closer, Monochrome Pensive, where it's just this 9-minute track of just beauty, and Lessard's lyrics make kind of these callbacks to some of the themes from Language of his friend who lost his mother, and then he eventually lost his life, and it's just a very powerful thing to see that he's making art with that terrible thing and making it into a beautiful thing. And it's a wonderful way to close the record. It's a wonderful record overall. If you like music, period, because there's really hardly any growls or screams on it, and even when there are, they're really not so easily audible. If you're just a lover of music, you will find something that you like on here. Something that you like will be on here. Whether it's jazz, whether it's pop, whether it's rock, whether it's metal. Anything you like, you will find it on here. One more. This is it. This is the number one. If you've made it to this point, I want to say thank you. Thank you for listening to what I have to say. Number one, Tyler, the Creator, Flower Boy. Heck yeah. What an amazing record. So I have had Tyler, the Creator in my life for quite some time. I remember a while back hearing some of his tracks from Wolf, like Tamale and IFHY, both of which I still think are excellent songs, and thinking, wow, this guy's really, inventive, and he's really kind of not afraid to say a lot of stuff. Yonkers is another kind of example of that. But wow, is this a far cry from Yonkers? He not only has kind of embraced a more emotional side of his music with his lyrics, but also with the actual production and musical sound of the record itself. This is a much more open Tyler. It's a much more emotionally vulnerable Tyler. It's a much more emotionally available Tyler. Like, you just feel like he's talking to you. You don't feel like with some of the stuff from, Wolf and Goblin and even Cherry Bomb. He does have a little bit of a confrontational tone. And with this, you don't really get that much. You're more like, okay, I understand. You're kind of just a guy spilling his feelings out. And it's something we haven't seen from him before, and it's something that if we continue to see from him, I think he could really benefit from that. I think he could really do excellent with it. It's soulful and vintage sounding, while not being necessarily like a throwback, because there's some stuff that's kind of timeless sounding, and when I say that, I mean it doesn't sound like it's from then, it doesn't sound like it's from now, and it doesn't sound like it's from the future. It just sounds like Tyler. Tyler has a very, very unique individual sound, and if you've listened to his music, you know what I mean. Like, there's some keyboard motifs and things that you'll hear. It's like keyboard sounds and maybe some modes that he uses. Just things that you're like, that is so Tyler, the Creator. That is him. And he really continues to explore that on this record, and it has some of his best production yet. I feel like it is a more production-focused record, because he does produce his own stuff. I'm really fine with that, because, you know, there's one song at the end that's just instrumental, and, you know, it's just like, if he was just a solo artist who didn't produce his own stuff, then I'd be like, that's kind of weird, isn't it? But instead, he does make his own stuff, and he does produce his own beats, and he does produce his own instrumentals, and he does it very well. Enjoy Right Now Today is a really nice closer. It's just very pretty. And a lot of the production is very pretty. He's known for kind of some very grimy, weird production sometimes, and he's been known for this soulful sort of stuff too. But on this, he takes a lot of very just romantic, sweeping sounds, and he just employs them very well. Very personal and introspective lyrics, like the song November has some of his best lines ever. The verse at the end of November is, I think, one of the best things I've heard this year. It's just amazing. And, you know, he gets really personal with it. He talks about his sexuality a little bit, it would seem. That was a very big media focus, but it's not even so big in the album. He really talks about love, and it's not so much about sexuality. It's more just about love and trying to find love and trying to feel love, and how he does with that, and how he has been doing with that. It's just kind of surprisingly emotional, I guess. Like, I have this theory that, like, it kind of sounds like he's driving throughout the whole thing. He references his car and stopping multiple times. In the short kind of transition track, sometimes you sort of hear a song and then you hear a guy come on the radio, and, you know, it sounds like he's taking requests, and it sounds like Tyler's called in, but, like, I mean, he probably sounds like he's listening to the radio, and it almost just sounds like this drive through LA into these mountains, like the ones that you see on the album cover, and it's just a beautiful, beautiful sounding record. And it's like, it sounds like he's just driving his car through this whole thing, and he's driving, talking to his friend, trying to get his feelings out, or even maybe by himself, just trying to get his feelings out to himself, and say these things to himself so that he can kind of figure out what he's feeling exactly. It's just, the whole thing really shows his skills as a songwriter and a maker of art. He's an artist on every level, because he designs clothes, and he makes music, and he writes the music, and he writes the lyrics, and he designs the art, or at least I know he has some part in designing the art, or commissioning it. And it's just really a testament to his creative genius. I would say he's a creative genius, and it is my favorite album of the year. Oh, and one last thing, he has some really great features on this. He has features from anywhere from Lil Wayne to Kali Uchis to on See You Again, which is a fantastic song, one of my favorite songs of the year as well. And I mean, plenty of others. He has Jaden Smith, and he has Frank Ocean a bunch, which is awesome. He's Rex Orange County, and it's just really brilliantly done, all of it, and it is the best record of the year. But let me know, what did you think was the best record of the year? And I hope you enjoyed this video. It's been a long time coming. My throat hurts, my feet hurt, and more specifically my leg. And yeah, I just really hope you enjoyed this. I hope to maybe make more of these. I don't know exactly what they're going to be like, but I have some time to make some stuff, so I might do it. Thank you for watching again if you made it to this point. Hope you liked the list. Hope you have some opinions of your own. If you do, share them with me. And, you know, show this to people. Do whatever you want. I just want to, I want people to see what I gotta say. So, thank you very much for watching again, and I will see ya.